So now what am I going to do? I figure out a spot. Hey, so we've started thinking about what our organizer is going to look like. We identified a person it's for, we identified a space that it's going in, and now we need to put our pens on paper because we need to plan if we want to have the result we want. So, first thing you need to do is look at your different ideas. I had this sheet up that I quickly sketched some different ways of approaching this. I need to select one in order to make. Because if we try to make all of them, we're not going to have exactly one good result. We need to identify what we're trying to make before we go ahead and make it. Once we've identified that, we have to think, how can I reduce my cuts? So last week I went into a few different techniques where you can fold pieces, you can make tabs, you can have slits that interlock, and I've got two examples of how we could reduce cuts so we don't have to glue. So if I'm working with this, I think about it. Okay, maybe I want a lip that hangs over the edge. How do I prevent this from folding out? I have a little model here. This, oh, yeah, you can't see that. This little model has two tabs. I'll pull one out. Oh, I don't want to rip this. I may have to rip it. Okay. There are two pieces like this. There are two cuts that lock into this angled surface. So I fold it in half and I cut it. You can barely see it. I cut it so you can fit this piece in and it'll hold the angle. Now, on the bottom lip, where you can rest things, all I did was, I'll just do this. I made a tab that goes through a slit on the back. Once you think about how you can reduce the amount of glue you need and reduce the number of cuts and pieces, then you want to diagram it. So, let's see. The first thing you have to consider is how large is your space, and that's going to change your measurements. So, for this diagram, I didn't include measurements. I have one coming up that will have measurements. But when I'm looking at this, I have to think about how much space do I have to put this, and how tall do I want it to be. Now, this section is going to be folded over to this section and this section. It's split into thirds, and I have an extra tab that comes out to fold over and go into the cut. Cuts are marked by orange, and the little circles are a fold line. See how I use notes to say what I'm trying to do? So these pieces are going to get folded. This tab's going to go in here. This is folded, this is cut, and then this is the small piece that gets inserted here. The height of this would be determined by the length of this space and this space, because when I fold them, these are the triangle standing up. They're going to be this triangle that we form at the end. Now, I have the other example. It's the one that I actually use in my own daily life. Now, my space that I use it in is fairly large. So this is an 8-inch, it's basically two 8-inch squares with different notches. So if your space is large enough to hold 8 inches, you can follow along with this guide on how to make this organizer at home. So, once we've determined we have enough space, then you have to think, how large do these cuts have to be? This one holds the wallet that I had. So I have to make sure it's large enough to hold my wallet. That's where the measurements from yesterday come into play. This gap is going to interlock with this gap. which means this gap needs to be as thick as my material. It also needs to be half the length of this board. So if this is 8 inches, this should be 4 inches if you want it to be flat. That being said, let me show you my quick orthographic diagram. For this drawing, I included this is 2 orthographic drawings. And it only has a front view and a side view for each, because my top view doesn't give me information. So, I'm going to fold this so we can look at it one at a time. Okay? So this piece matches this piece. What I've done here is I drew my 8-inch square, and then I measured how far out this gap needs to be. Now, I actually did not include that here. Let's see. This length should be, looks like it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that gap is going to be, I draw my dimension lines and I say 1.5 inches from the edge is where this starts. Now, we need to make this the thickness of the material. So, at this point, we've covered how big should my space be? How big should my gaps be for the different objects? And now we have to think about how thick our material is. So what I did was I got my cardboard that I'm going to use. This is very important. Cardboard is different sizes. So you get your cardboard and you say what your measurement is. So here I got 3/16 of an inch thick is this. So if I want my cardboard structure to be 3/8 of an inch, if one sheet of cardboard is 3/16, so let's do 3/16 times x. So this is how thick one sheet of cardboard is. This is how many sheets I need. Equals 3/8. So now what we can do is multiply. If I divide a fraction, it flips. So let's do 16/3. This cancels out, this cancels out. Here, 3 cancels out. 16 divided by 8 is 2. I need 2 sheets of cardboard. Alright, so here I have my thickness in my side view saying 3/8 of an inch. That means I need 2 sheets of cardboard. So this gap, it's going to start 1.5 inches away, and it's going to be 3/8 of an inch thick, wide. This gap is for the wallet. If I wanted to, I could say wallet. As long as it's in the cut, that's fine. Here I've got a 2-inch circle that's going to be for that cup that I used, which would be this cup hole. And this is going to be 2 inches in from the side and 2 inches down from the end. Now here I've got how big the gap should be, 5 inches. Why did I put it here? I want it to the side of my object. So this wallet space is going to be 5 inches long. Here the wallet, I didn't identify what that should be, but it looks like it's pretty much central. It really doesn't matter as long as it's far away from the stuff and it doesn't go in, it doesn't interfere with the space that locks into the other piece. For the other portion, I've set this up so these gaps are opposite each other. Remember, they need to lock in with each other. And they're the same thickness, and they line up. So, for this, what I included is the gap where I held my lanyard, and I put the depth for that. Here I'm just going to put a peg so it works that way. And I have pretty much all the measurements I need. This is simpler. But there's one extra feature that I've added, and it's these pink lines. I decided to add an extra cardboard strip so that I have a notch like this, but instead of cutting into the cardboard, I'm going to add a layer of cardboard. To show you what that looks like, here are two sketches. One sketch is our typical isometric view, and the other sketch shows the cardboard pieces, 1 and 2, that will make this groove. Now I'm going to attach a picture of all my work, but just to summarize what I want you to do today. Number 1, you're going to check the space size. Make sure it's large enough for whatever you're making. Number 2, you are going to think about how you can reduce the cuts. Fold your pieces, interlock pieces, so you don't have to glue it. Next is that you are going to be thinking about how large the gaps need to be on your organizer to hold your 3 specific items. You have to think about how thick your material is. When you go to make those interlocking parts, they have to be as thick as each other. The gap needs to be as thick as the material, so it fits. And then lastly is, where are you going to place your features? Once you have a diagram, you can then build. But before you have a diagram, it's really not good to build because things may not line up the way you expect. So to summarize, your task today is to generate an orthographic drawing or CAD model of your pieces you are going to use. In this example, I only have 2 drawings, but I'm going to need 2 sheets of this and 2 sheets of this because my thickness is 2 sheets of cardboard thick. As always, join our video chat if you have questions, and I wish you luck.